Welcome to T4G Sports, and I think it's safe to say that Alabama needs to turn things around because this is not shocking anymore. South Carolina playing the way they played, not shocking anymore. So let's talk about these two teams. Welcome in, guys. Make sure to subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave a comment down below on your opinions on this game. It was a very interesting one. Ugly and interesting. So the number one thing from this game that I took away from this is South Carolina should have won this game, and South Carolina needs to get a quarterback back there. You got to really invest into a quarterback. I know people will say the offensive line, but the offensive line did not lose you that game. Your quarterback lost you this game. That 2-point conversion should have been completed. You have to gain 19 yards. 19 yards to put yourself in field goal range at the end of that game to win it. And it was just poor performance, not just the quarterback on that. It was not just Sellers. There was others as well. That offensive lineman shouldn't have caught that ball. But at the same point in time, Sellers did not help him. If you look at his stats, it's not even like they were that bad. But he missed opportunities and he screwed up in big-time situations. The fumble, okay, that was one of the biggest turn of events in this game for South Carolina. One of the biggest ones. They need to have a more efficient quarterback at the helm, one that's not going to make big mistakes like that in big situations. And that's kind of what we're seeing with him in big situations. Sellers is not answering the call. And yes, maybe he'll grow into that. I don't know, but right now it's ugly. It's not looking good. And the trust factor for him, as much as I would have liked to pick South Carolina for an upset again this week, I can't do it because of Sellers. I just can't do it. You know, I do believe that South Carolina has a top 5 defense in the country. They are very few players away from being a true competitor, not just even in the SEC, but in the playoff. That defense is a very, very nasty defense. And a big key note here, Dylan Stewart, he was in last year's class. He's a true freshman. You heard the announcers talk about him. They got him from Ohio State. There was a moment in time where Sellers was actually projected to go to Ohio State. He didn't. I believe this kid is going to be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Could even perhaps be a top 5. Nothing shocks me with his ceiling. His ceiling is so high. He's really big, just phenomenal in so many different ways for being a true freshman. So let's cover Alabama here. They're not a second half team, and this is one of the biggest concerns is the fact that they're not a second half team. I mean, look at this. Look at this graph. It's a perfect example of a second quarter. You get into halftime, third quarter, boom. South Carolina starts coming back. You look at these stats here. South Carolina won time of possession. You look at total yards. This is where it's very concerning as well. South Carolina's offense is not good. Okay, they are not efficient. At times they can be. Sellers has really choreographed throws. You know, they basically tell him who to throw to. They have pre-planned throws basically for him, and they still screw it up. Sellers turns the ball over. Their offense turned the ball over 4 times, and Alabama still only got 313 yards. Look, South Carolina's defense is a top 5 defense, but if you're only getting 313 yards after 4 turnovers, your team's not good. Because I get it. South Carolina's defense is good. I understand. But your offense cannot be that bad and you're a top 10 team in the country. It can't be that way. It cannot be that way. There's so many issues, and I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. Coaching staff, in my opinion, has lost control of this football team, and I don't think it's just on Kalen DeBoer. I don't think it's just on Womack. I don't think if Nick Saban was back, I don't think it would be vastly different. Okay, I'm going to be real with the Alabama fans. I know you guys want to point the blame at someone on this. Last year, you guys gave up like 7 sacks against Alabama. Seth McLaughlin was the guy who you guys, you know, he's not good on that offensive line, and he leaves and goes to Ohio State, and yet that offensive line has just deteriorated even more. USF bullied around that offensive line for far too long last year with Saban. This has been showing to be a little bit of a tendency, and now it's just magnified. Okay, and you have to think too, Alabama. Right after Nick Saban left, Alabama had Julian Sand transfer, Caleb Downs, Seth McLaughlin all transferred to Ohio State. There was something going on to where these players believed that it's going downhill for Alabama. That's what I'm leading to think now, is that they looked at it and said, hey, I have a better shot at Ohio State than I do at Alabama. And I don't think that they necessarily just blamed Nick Saban leaving. I think Nick Saban was the reason they stayed, but I bet you they saw some issues to some degree even before that. And then Saban leaving, they were like, no shot. We're leaving. That's what it feels like, at least now. But this coaching staff has lost control of this football team. They're not as coached up as they used to be. You're seeing them get more angry, like last week, kicking the ball, throwing the mouthpiece. Like, you just see some tendencies that you just didn't see under Saban. So I will give Saban that. Much more clean football team. You were much more afraid to pull shit like that because he wasn't going to have it. Now let's move on to Milroe. Milroe can lose composure and will just throw it up at times. He doesn't necessarily trust his arm, in my opinion. The coaching staff doesn't necessarily trust his arm too. When he started making bad throws, and this is at home, by the way. Like, that's the other really bad part. They start running him, and it gets even worse than that because then they start bringing in a 2 tight end set. With their 5 offensive linemen, you got a total of 7 blockers, and South Carolina was still stopping your run with only 4 down linemen. That was bad. Offensive line has trouble with pushing downhill. They're pushing uphill. That's what it looks like. You're just pushing uphill all game long. And they noticed it too, the coaching staff, and they go, what do? The coaching staff brings in more tight ends to help block. And then they just start running Milroe a lot. I'm worried that Milroe's going to take unnecessary shots and get injured, and then you're really hosed. Let's go on to defense here. I have nothing to say bad about the receivers. I think that Ryan Williams is obviously a monster and will be a first-round pick in the future. I can't talk much about the receivers when they're just not really involved in the game that much. And they're simply not. They are here and there, but not enough to where I could really say, hey, they sucked on this one or they were great. I think they did what they needed to do, but at the same point in time, you just didn't see a lot of looks from them. So on the defensive side, they lack toughness. It's crazy to say that is on Womack too. He just did not make him tough enough for the season. The one part what's on Womack and on the defensive players is their defense is not going to tackle for 4 quarters. And that for veteran players, you have no excuse. I don't care about your defensive coordinator being new or not. You losing the ability to tackle when you came from Saban. You know, you're supposed to go to the NFL and still tackle like a beast better than everyone else because you were under Saban at some point in time. Just the fact that Saban's not there anymore, no. There's plenty of defenders that have gone to the league and been some of the best tacklers, and the coaching staffs didn't even need to teach them much because they were under Saban. Okay, so that goes on both Womack and the defense. Not tackling for 4 quarters is a huge problem. You know, they used to dominate with only 4 down defensive linemen, and now they have to start stacking the box to actually stop a run. And what's sad about that is you would know that South Carolina was going to run, and it made you nervous as a defensive coordinator. He's not trusting his guys. So this was good and bad on just multiple fronts. South Carolina really needs to go after a transfer portal quarterback, and you need to spend the damn money. I mean, your team is ready for this, and you guys should see this and capitalize on this opportunity that your defense is giving you with your defensive coordinator, who is a great defensive coordinator, and he's got these guys well coached. Too bad he can't coach offense and quarterback play, but a very well coached team. You got to go get a transfer portal quarterback. Alabama, you need to restructure. It's got to be a restructure, and I know that's that usually is bleak for you, but if you continue playing like this, your playoff chances, like literally you could get to the playoff, but my belief that you're going to dominate in the playoff, I'm just not sold. Of course, crazy things can happen, but this was a bad look for Alabama. And in SC, your defense is phenomenal. Wow, that defense is good. I love that defense. I really do. That is a top 5 defense without a doubt in my mind. Could even be top 3. They are very good. So, yeah, let us know what you guys think down below.